We're looking at the market's best momentum companies for trading opportunities and the common factors that they all share before they become the strongest performers. That's entering the Launchpad. Gary Glover has been through both lists and is here to explain the charts, the setups, and the similarities that he looks for when trading these leaders. Good morning, Gary. How are you?
I'm good, Chris. I'm good.
So you're looking at the momentum leaders. These are the strongest companies on the ASX, the hockey stick charts, the ones that are shooting up through the roof. And I think you're not really seeing similar names, but what's standing out to you at the moment if you look at this week's list?
Yeah, so there's definitely two themes in one theme in each list. So the momentum, the strongest, obviously, quarterly ones there. We're seeing a lot of biotech companies in there. So heaps of sort of, imaging, life science, just all types of sort of
Hospital infrastructure and
even sort of so it's some sort of health and even some tech health as well in there as well. But you probably classify them all under the biotech category. Most of them, or not most of them, but a lot of them anyway. And there's definitely a lot of those in there actually. And then in the Launchpad, then I jump ahead there, but there's quite a few little defense companies popping in there, obviously following in the footsteps of Drone Shield, which has obviously been a winner, and probably still on our, I think it's almost 10 on our momentum. It has been in there for a long time there in orange colored Drone Shield. So, but yeah, that's pretty interesting there. So, this is number 2 on the list there, OptiScan, OIL. Obviously had a pretty big jump here. So, not too much there sort of signal-wise, apart from pretty strong momentum there. So, apart from maybe coming out a bit of a tightening sort of base there, apart from that sort of big volume there, wasn't sort of too much sort of too much to sort of jump on there as a trader there. I think EOFY did have that more of a VC sort of pattern there into May, and then sort of popped out, and then we started to see some volume there because again, we're just sort of seeing how these companies sort of run, and we see how we've talked about the last couple of weeks here. Basically, I'm just curious as to sort of, with the end of year tax selling, that our losers, typically the foot remains on the throat going into June 30. So those stocks don't tend to bounce at all. So I'm just wondering actually, Chris, whether this sort of something we discussed what started today is that wondering whether these names that have been running here, whether there is any little profit taking post June 30. So it's not sort of something we've looked at really in depth in the previous couple of years. We'll be curious to sort of see what they've got, because obviously human nature is not to is to take those losses out, before the June 30, and then we know that the dogs of the Dow tend to have a bit of a bounce out of the new year, but wondering whether some of these names, we've seen here SPR, which is down the bottom of the list, 27, but it has been on the list pretty much the whole year. Whether that was, whether stocks like that will be running for a long time, whether there's any profit taking. Is it human nature just to lock that profit in next year? And knowing the market's had a pretty good year as well. That's probably the other thing too. If the market's had a good year and the big gains, you probably don't want to lock all your gains in at the end of the year, because then you pay tax on those. But maybe you might take some. There might be a little bit of that early in next year, but it'll be interesting to sort of see, because we see that CU6 as well is still, even though it's broken some of the moving averages there. I sort of spoke to you about breaking the 10 and the 20. So it has held on here. I did sort of indicate that I thought it might hang around here until the end of the year. So this one's probably a little bit more vulnerable just because it has broken down the 10 and 20. Then we know in the past that's usually when it goes through the consolidation here. But just curious just to see whether those names that have been running here, whether there's any profit taking in new year. It possibly could be, but something we'll monitor there. Number, I think I might have jumped there, the EOFY. Yeah, that was sort of one that we talked about last week, that really tightening in those 4 or 5 days there, sort of staying tight under the high and then popping through. Bit of volatility in there, but again, it stayed pretty firm into the end of the year. IRI was the one that we, talking about this little high type flag in there, ended up being an ABC. something that does happen a lot. And then, yeah, so that's sort of something that I've sort of written in my little diary book this year, Chris, is to look at those strongest names and to wait for a ABC, particularly like a false break. This wasn't really a good thing, Normally, what happens with some of these stronger names is they have more of a squarer. So, like in Elliott wave terms, they call it the ABC flat, where you see like probably just marginally breaks below here, and then it turns up there. That's the type of sort of setup we want to see from those sort of stronger names there. But we definitely know that these stocks have got a habit of running, having a bit of a congestion there, and then running again and congestion, and actually going through maybe multiple congestion periods before they keep going here. So again, sort of like there's your A, B, C. This one's a little deeper. You probably just want to prefer the marginal ones there, but it's built again after having this sort of correction there. So it's definitely sort of something to sort of for us to have a closer look at there with those sort of stronger names, probably more so on the momentum that's sort of been running for a while. So I think if they've run at least 3 to 6 months, like, if they have that little pause there, the ABC there, that's probably a identification there. Then you're looking for it to tighten up, and look, maybe you're just waiting for that little G-wave break. So it has the ABC, you get a little bit of a jump here, and then you don't want to be sort of sitting in the stock. Again, like in terms of minute being, you want to be in the market the least amount of time, but the most productive amount of time. So really, you want to sort of see what once this sort of takes off here, that's when you want to be in there. And that's sort of come back. But yeah, you're looking for that sort of break there as well. So the one that I liked last week, Chris, M4M, the one that I talked about, I thought was probably one of the most interesting last year. Nice little tight little pattern in there. It's had a nice little jump this week as well. So just interesting. Now I was hoping it might have actually come down like a little false break of this level, but the whole thing just sort of tightened up there. You can kind of, with these sort of small ones, they're harder to trade. But I think the smaller ones there, what you've got to do is maybe drill into the half hourlies and stuff there to trade them there. Because obviously, if you look at this here, once the whole thing tightened up here, this might be a B wave there, which I think was around about 3.3 or something there. So if it breaks 3.3, but the whole thing is tightened up in this range here. So breaking above 3.1 might have been enough of a trigger. So if it hit 3.2, you might have, So I think sometimes I don't want to sort of get too biomechanical here, but you can see this is sort of tightened up on a half hourly, tightened up here. So once we start to come out of here, so that's 3.1, 3.2, and then we know that, we know we're possibly sort of off here. So sometimes you do need to sort of drill into your time frame. I personally don't like going down too many frames. I think if you start looking at 1 minute, 5 minute, 10 minute charts, so you just see too much. But if we're trading the dailies, I think the half hourly will, give us a little bit of fine tune our entry. Well, not. I personally found some of my best trades. So I've seen that VCP set up on the daily, and then I've gone into the half hourly and seen the VCP within the half hourly, and that's given me a really tight, beautiful entry. So, but I wouldn't recommend in trying to go down the 15 and 10s and 5s and 1s. I think you're getting probably too short in time frame there. But if you're trading the weekly, you might use the daily to fine tune your entry. I think if you're using a daily, you might use a half hour, fine tune entry. So you're probably looking at one time frame down there in terms of adding to your entries there. But this looks pretty good here so far. Yeah, nothing wrong with that. That's got, this, we talked about those A type of characteristics, Chris, looking at, the Magnificent Seven that we covered there. They all had that sort of scope and type of start there where there was really an impulsive dynamic move on pretty heavy volume in probably say 90% of the cases. There might have been one case there where we've on more of a site or had something less dynamic and then gone through a congestion and then gone again. But most of them would have this type of move there, have a dynamic move initially on pretty big volume, pull back here. So this is a Kalamagi trade all over. This is what Christian Kalamagi trade, because this is, gone up, 100, 200, 300%, whatever it is. And then the whole thing's tightened up here. He's looking for the tightness there, and then he's looking to buy this big on the break. And that's if you've been following his work there, that's what he talks about non-stop.
That Magnificent Seven was a really good video, so we'll put the link down below for it. But that was really unpacking the best momentum shares over the last 12 months or so.
Yeah.
But look, find his FND that you've got on chart there. That's still a phenomenal chart, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. So for this one, this one hurts me a lot. I did watch this. This is again, we had that dynamic move at the start here. See the big volume come in early. That's talking about a move from 40 cents up here to $1.29. So we've gone up 150% there. So that's how they start. Big dynamic move, big volume comes in, and then they go through a bit of a pause here. This thing went through a long pause, really dried up here. So you see the volume dried up through here, started to sort of come back in and wind up, and then it sort of start going here. I remember trying to buy this actually. I just don't know what happened actually. I was just like, this thing sort of got away from me, and big regret that one. It's sort of, I think it's like that and A2 Milk probably the two that got away from me in the last financial year. And but yeah, big volume here. That's been pretty dynamic. That you notice through here, Chris, all these corrections are uniform. What I mean by uniform is they're all small. They're all around the same size. So this is sort of one thing McLaren talks about. It's that sort of trend structure as well. So once this sort of starts running, pullbacks, as long as the pullbacks are all sort of around the same size, so if you measure the high to low, the high to low, the high to low, high to low in there, they'd all be sort of pretty similar. And then this probably is an overbalance. This probably tells you when it's maybe when it does this big correction, it tells you could be risk there. But the thing about that correction is because the last high is so far back, this trend's gone up here. You've got so much spacing between the last high and this, because this has been such a strong move. So that's why when you have these corrections there, can just kind of build again and go again. So, but you probably I think still using your MAs like your 10s and 20s to exit, and then look for a little B wave, because I think this sort of come back to the 50 here, try to hold it. Even if you look for a little B wave break in here, little construction there, just had a bounce, a couple of days, tightened up, and then pierced through. And I think that day was a pretty decent sort of volume day as well. You can see that was pretty, the volume dried up in there as well. And even if you sort of saw it come back here, and it's just a little bit of a cup and handle up here as well. I mean, once we've gone through, we know this is pretty bullish here. That the whole thing comes back and just keeps sitting on top of that previous high and goes again as well. So, yeah, that's been obviously a phenomenal sort of move as well. But yeah, it's
Still in your top 30 momentum.
Yeah, we've been there a long time actually, FND. So was BOT as well. It's been in there quite a bit. It's been really quite a nice and sort of steady slow mover here. Again, it's just that uniform, no big corrections in there, quite flat there. The key there is just to sort of watch those corrections and just sort of see how active they are. So see it come up there. You just don't see, so sort of a little bit of selling in here. It's gone higher there. And the whole thing just sort of squares off here. It's sort of, like it's struggling to go down here. I used to always be wary of these sort of false breaks or down margin your highs and square off here. But now when I see this tight price action under the high there, where it's just, spend say like 3 or 4 days, it struggles to go down. That's what you're looking for. You're looking at that's when they just pop up here. And that first, starts to come out here. There's a lot of volume increase the day before here. So very, light volume through here. The first day up, we got volume come in. So yeah, the things just kicked on again. So we know there's leaders, they just keep continuing to power on here. So AL3 I thought was pretty interesting. This was it looked them up there. So basically, they do a lot of metals for the defense industry. And they've just set up a manufacturing plant in Ohio, in the US, just to be closer to the US military. So yeah, that's jumped up, on that announcement there. yesterday, and it's followed through today. So I thought that looked pretty good, just because this has sort of been building here. The longer term chart I thought was struck as well. Just been a bit of volume coming in on these rallies there, even though it's all been sort of flatline. So it does have a bit of a higher low in there, all tightened up in there, and just starting to pierce here. Just all that chunky volume there recently. So something's happening there, but definitely this is one to keep an eye on there, because we notice a lot of those defense stocks have really run pretty hot. MRL was the next one there. That's Maya Resources there. Yeah, just some pretty chunky volume there, Chris. A bit of a scattered, a bit of a scatty sort of stock here. Like it definitely punches up and punches down a bit. So that's probably the negative for the stock there. Got a little bit of chunky volume there, but just because it's a little scattered, that stock, maybe a little bit of liquid, probably less feeling for myself there. MGR, MedAdvisor, another one. I thought this was okay here. Just keeps building here, really. So, look at that. That's had a terrific run there. Chris, he gets up to the top there. You sort of get maybe one day selling there. Then look at that tight price action there. Just nothing. So that's what you want to look for. You want to look for that really sketch that dollar strength, and then just that tight, So this is like, Kalamagi, what's to say that, loose is for losers and tight is for winners there. That tightness there, but that's what we're looking for, Saw someone, I think might have been Jeff Su, like a US trader there. He had like a little spring. He had like a little spring. And he goes, if there's one thing a trader should look at, one concept, that spring, coiling in, pulling in. And I thought it was just such a simple thing to put on there, but such a really important technique. It's not understood well enough there. So we definitely want to be looking for those stocks that have been strong and they tighten up there. That CPV was the other one I thought was pretty interesting, just because this is sort of had a pretty strong run there. It's had a bit of an ABC, maybe a bit deeper than you'd like there, but then we've sort of come through the B wave here. So we've had a bit of a rally, flatten off here. We are sort of above the 50 there. Then we've punched above that old high there on the 50 and on the volume as well. So I think the CPV, Clearview Technologies, I just can't remember what it was now. I think it was that medical sort of space there. So, but yeah, that's an interesting one as well, because I thought that looked pretty solid. I think the weekly, so it's had a pretty impulsive move here. Sort of come back to the 50 week there, but that looks pretty square. That's that sort of sideways consolidation there, which you like to sort of see those kind of consolidations there. Yeah.
This is the integrated photolytic solution. So they're solar panel windows.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. So, so there was a company like that years ago which had the resin in between the glass. Commercial, but it just had it seemed like a great idea, but never really got going here. But this does have some commercial sort of solar applications there for buildings there. So interesting, but see how that tightness in there, this whole period there, see how it's gone up. It's sort of gone up impulsively, some reasonable volume through there, and the whole thing tightens up on that volume there. That's a good setup there. Then it powers out here. So this has had a good, it's been good volume through there. Look how that's tightened up here on a weekly, very light volume, and then power's come out of there. So that looks pretty good. That's definitely I've highlighted about 5 or 6 stocks here this week. That was definitely one of the ones I've highlighted there. And that MRO I thought was pretty interesting as well. That was the quarterly momentum stocks there. I mean, there's some good stocks on that list there. There's some good volumes on some of those names as well, Chris. And kind of think you sort of have to go back, and I've sort of started to go back and look at stocks that have been that IPO'd in the last 2 or 3 years, because sometimes the sort of cycle, you can sort of see that the first year or maybe even 2 years, they can jump around a bit, have a bit of a move over, then they sort of go through a bit of a congestion tightening pattern, and it might take a while for that company to get a bit of traction, sales, and so start to make some inroads there. That they may have even had to go to the market and raise money sometimes. But then the product sort of starts to roll, start to get approval, start to get a few things in line there. That's a company that can sort of get going there. So those newer names are definitely ones to be sort of looking at there. But I think it's been around for 10 or 20 years and it's got a nasty downtrend and there's just a lot of sellers in front of you. That's just get rid of those. That's, there's probably 1 in 100, 1 in 1,000 of those are going to do well. But we know our newer names that are probably in the last 2 to 4 years, that's likely where the bigger winners are going to come from. So, just sort of early companies that can get moving there. So those are the ones we should be looking at there.
Nice. Well, they're definitely those strong momentum companies are the ones that you've really been looking at and looked at in the Magnificent Seven. And you're talking about the strong defense representation. You were seeing that in the Launchpad. So what we know about all of these momentum companies is that they were on the Launchpad to start off with. So they started off on the Launchpad and they move into being momentum leaders. So it's not to say everything on the Launchpad becomes a momentum leader, but everything that's on the momentum list had to be on the Launchpad first. And it's like just completely flipped it now because that chart that you had on screen was the exact opposite. It was bottom right as opposed to top right.
Yeah.
But what are you seeing when you're looking at the Launchpad this week? Sort of opportunities or groups or clusters or pattern setups, similarities?
Yeah, so sort of there was a few defense names there. So obviously, I think number 9 there is the AML 3D, which is basically that's the sort of metals company that's sort of set up in Hawaii. That's why I was also in the quarterly there, but that's had a nice little jump here. Definitely want to keep an eye on that because obviously we know that Drone Shield really kicked on in that area, and also EOS, which is number 11 on the list, Chris, as well. That's had a pretty good jumper as well here. See that I think the US government actually bought 10 of their, there must be some sort of drone application devices there and donated it to the Ukraine's. So just interesting there. That's definitely it kind of been growing in sales on EOS. It has been around for a while, this company, but it's even though the share price has been it's had a bit of a hard time recent years, it has been sort of building again. But what's probably most interesting is the company itself is if you look at the financials have actually have been improved in the recent years. So that's what I mean. You can look at companies' balance sheets and financials and sales, it doesn't always match the chart. So you see those, people get excited when they first come on and they go crazy, and then they don't meet the lofty standards that the market's sort of hoping for. It takes a while, and maybe got to raise some money, and then they go through a fighting phase, and then it re-emerges here. But this is definitely one to sort of keep an eye on there. That's a pretty impulsive rally. Had a pull back there quite deep, so you prefer to see these sort of hold in the top half of the range. That's definitely it's probably come back at least 2/3 of that range. Personally, you'd love to see them in the top half or even the top quarter. Top quarter's a bit rarer, but we do sort of I mean, it's something like this is a weird stock here. This is like AGL, which is not like dynamic company here, but you can see this has had an impulsive move up here, and look how tight that range is there.
That's that quarter that you're talking about, or maybe even tighter.
Yeah. So it's really stayed in the top. So it just doesn't sell off here. And then once it comes through, then this thing is not going to look back. So that's the type of thing I'm sort of looking at. I'm sort of looking at that stock sort of not coming back so much. So the other one I thought was pretty interesting in the quarterly list were the CRD, Conrad Asia. So they're basically sort of got one of the sort of biggest gas deposits there actually in Indonesia. So they've just done a JV with Indonesia, or the biggest Indonesian oil producer there. So pretty chunky volume here. Been in a bit of a downtrend, this one. Definitely some of the oil gas stocks starting to move here. So still in the downtrend, still hasn't broken a swing high. So that's the negative there. But that volume's pretty interesting. Just the first commercial deal over the line. So it's definitely one just to keep an eye on, on the radar. If that looked all right. Clearview was sort of one that we mentioned previously. That looks pretty solid. MRL, I think was had a bit of a jump on volume, a little bit less interesting there. The other one that I thought looked pretty good was IMR. So again, we've sort of got a lot of medical biotech companies in there. So again, this is pretty interesting. If you look at that impulsive move and then this whole thing's tightened up again, so that's kind of the we're looking for that sort of that setup there. We want to see a dynamic move. It's probably just fits in there because we've sort of gone from sort of 28 cents there to 60. So we have gone up 100% move, and that's pretty good volume in there. And then it sort of dries up here, but the whole thing is just going on square here now. So again, it's sort of struggling to sort of go down. There's a big BCP tightening pattern there. Just the last thing on the chart here is starting to see some volume emerging as well. So probably like to see this be a bit more dynamic and a bit more volume, but does sort of fit the hallmarks of those bigger movers there. So, it's like a high type flag there, getting that 100% move. That's almost sort of something if you look at stocks that move, say 90 to 100%, have some pretty good volume, and then wait for them to tighten up and then go. And that tighten up, as we've seen there with even like FND, that was about 4 months, that consolidation. That was quite long. So they can consolidate for quite a period here, but this one's probably just catching the eye there just because we saw a bit of volume off that last low, and we saw some even heavier volume coming through here now. And yeah, it's just, I noticed they've actually just started to get a few sales as well. So I think in the last month or two there, they've started to sort of get a few sales there. So it is a sort of medical device company starts getting a few more sales there. Yeah, and if you do follow like a lot of those biotechs and stuff there, you realise that the margin on those businesses is pretty high. It's just so hard to get to market, so hard to get to commerciality stage. But if you do get there, the margins of the business are normally pretty decent there. So it's definitely one to keep an eye on there, just because that's it looks like it's sort of building there, and just because it has that sort of positive look as well. Jupiter Mines is one that I thought's been pretty interesting. Again, there's your impulsive move there, Chris, big move. And then now we've sort of had our ABCs come back, and they're sort of, build from here as well. There was okay volume come in as well, back towards 50 there. So this is definitely going to go on our radar there, just because that's how they all start. They all start with this big impulsive move where they basically more than double in value, and there's pretty healthy volume there. Then they go through a nice tight consolidation. That's basically stayed in the top half of the range so far. So definitely going to put this on the list there as definitely one to have a look at. I recommend, if you get your little list of sort of stocks there, go and actually just go and do a quick search on the company there. If you got Iris or whatever else, just look up what they do, look up the last 2 or 3 announcements, just sort of see what's happening there. And if there's some interesting things afoot there, then and then just probably the one thing I like to look at is see how much cash there is, or whether or how long ago they raised money. Because if they raise money like in the last 6 months, then you're pretty confident you're not going to see another raising for at least 12 months. So there's no surprises there, because there's nothing worse than sort of buying these sort of stocks that look pretty good, heat up, and then a few days after you buy it, there's the capital raising at at a 10% discount to your entry price. That's what we want to avoid. So there's just things that IPOs need for as well there. I think that's kind of it, Chris. There's a few on the list, but those probably the ones that sort of jumped out to me. In terms of any lessons for me, I've got 2 lessons actually this week. And one of them is around a topic which is dear to both of our hearts, in some degree there. And it's something I did this a lot over COVID years. I was doing a lot of like breathing techniques, and did a lot of wind pull-ups, did a little bit of box breathing, just something I just tried to throw in there. I did it initially just for health reasons, just sort of trying to be healthy, trying to be strong. But it does sort of help with the concentration of stuff. And if you read most of like I know Minervini does breathing techniques every day before he trades. His wife is a practitioner in that area, but a lot of professionals do use some of the breathing. And it doesn't need to be, you don't need to go and do a half hour or an hour of meditation there. You can just do something that's some 5 or 15 minute sort of breathing techniques, just to sort of just breathe there. And I know that it's something that I've sort of tried to. I know that I've sort of got away from it, to be honest, like in the last 9 months. Because I did it probably pretty hard for about 2 or 3 years, and I probably didn't realize how big a difference it makes. And then not doing it, I think it's probably made me a little bit less calm and more erratic, and probably trading too much. And then I've just noticed the last couple of weeks, just like introducing it back in there, it's definitely sort of felt a little bit more calmer and less erratic. And so it's just sort of something I've introduced. I know this book here, I said 80 years ago, so have you read this, Chris? And he said, that changed my life. So I was going to ask you for a little quick summary on what that book means to you, and also what you think about breathing as well as a topic.
Oh, look, I completely agree. Utterly, that it makes a huge difference for trading for many things. So I do triathlon as well, and I noticed so the tape over the lips for sleeping, so increases your nasal breathing, but the nitrous oxide, which is similar to what cars have when they accelerate, for everybody remember it's the Fast and the Furious movies, but it has a similar impact to our bodies if we breathe through our nose, and that improves your oxygen uptake. And you can do things, whether it's reduce your cortisol, and you can decrease the cortisol in your bloodstream dramatically with just 3 steady breaths. And I'm sure you'd be doing this kind of thing just because you'd be able to put a trade on. Time's pressing, the opportunity's running away, you're going through your checklist, and you're bang, 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 your heart's racing. Am I going to miss it? Is the risk reward ratio right? You're running through that checklist as the share price is moving. If you just take a couple of seconds, slow the breathing down, that has a huge impact. And I could talk about it for hours about how it impacts sort of training, cycling, running, swimming. But from the cognitive perspective, definitely, if I haven't been doing those kind of practices that you're talking about, it doesn't have to be long. It can just be sort of 30 seconds to 2 minutes. But if I'm not incorporating those into my day, I know that I've been plotting the work that I do on a daily basis for about 15 years into 5-10 minute chunks. So I know how long each task normally takes. And if I haven't been breathing properly, it blows out, and the quality of my work also drops off too. So, yeah, you're right. It's dear to my heart, and I completely agree. And it's for health side of things. But if we just bring it back to trading, it really does just come and keep you back and true to your systems and your setups, which you've been talking about for years and years. So, what does it mean to you, that book?
Yeah, you're going to give a very analytical answer there, but I think it's great because I know it's something you're passionate about. But it's a massive thing because we do, it's a pressure game. So it's a mental game. Trading in the zone, Mark Douglas, always sort of, psychology around it, greed, fear and stuff there. But just incorporating just a tiny, I'd recommend anyone just try and incorporate a little bit of that breathing. There you do some box breathing, just some of those techniques, just to sort of calms that. And I probably do it each day as well, just before the day starts, just to just calm myself. But it's made a difference to me. My just how I'm feeling generally, definitely a little bit more relaxed and stuff. And I've definitely found that I don't have the compulsion to trade as much as I often want to trade, and that's probably one of the big things for me. Is I'm probably a bit like Kalamagi is addicted to trading. I'm not addicted to pressing advising, so I just need to chill and calm and relax and stuff there. And the other thing the other lesson that I picked up as well, which is sort of definitely made me reflect a little bit, kind of in the same sort of area, is that I was sort of rereading some of Minervini there a couple of weeks ago. He's talking about just knowing the numbers of your trading, knowing the maths. So obviously, your win rate, things like that, but just how many trades do you have to make? If you look at your system, so you've got your processor system there, how many trades do you have to take each year to have a winning system? And then, because I was reading that, listening to it, and I thought, because I sort of know I know my win rate ratio because I used to look at it previously. I haven't looked at it the last sort of year or two, but I know that the numbers sort of where they sort of sit. And so when I look at my win-loss ratio, how many trades I'm going to take, and how, my goal is to get up to a certain level, I kind of worked out maths, and it actually worked out, just putting it down in the simplest form, it worked out to be 2 trades each week. That's all I need to be to successful. I thought, that's a lot less than I'm doing right now. We're doing double at least. So I just need to chill, relax. Obviously, you have to do some more breathing, but also if I'm only needed to do 2 trades a week, then the beauty of that is I'm just looking for the best 2. So it kind of, that adds a little bit of integrity into what I'm actually looking for. So if I break my numbers down to to that sort of fine print there, I'm looking for the 2 best trades that I can see for the whole week. So, I'll see 10 or 20 opportunities, but they're not in the top 2. They really got to tick all the boxes there. So for now, just doing that exercise there, breaking the numbers down along the maths, it redefined, the process for me a little bit more, made it a bit harder, and also it's just taken all the B trades out of it, Chris, as well, because there should be at least 1 or 2 A trades there every week, sort of set up there. So you just be patient for it. If not, then maybe it'll be 3 next week. But definitely felt that process there, just doing the maths there, has broken it down into a simple form, and just doing a little bit of breathing. That's probably the 2 things the last couple of weeks that felt like they've definitely made a bit of a difference as well. I feel like I'm looking at the charts each weekend now a little bit different in terms of really looking at those stronger names, sort of. So it's got away from bottom dwelling. I'm just looking at the strong names that are trying to go through consolidation here. So because we know, we just keep, the evidence is there. The evidence is staring into the face there now that the stronger names just sort of keep looking there. I think one that sort of comes to mind to me in the last week or 2 here is like the Santos there. That has stayed so tight on the weekly setup there. Like, it just has not shown any weakness. There's that classic sort of tight pattern there. So good volume there last week. So this looks pretty robust to me. So that's the type of thing, like I thought, to see that on the daily there. While the rest of the sector's been pretty weak. So that's the type of thing I'm looking for now. I'm looking for the stocks that hold up strongest. That tight price action, like the AGLs and stuff there, that's probably a boring sort of stock here that I didn't really love previously, but it has started to improve here. But again, it's just the classic sort of stuff. That's the type of thing you look for. Look for that strong performance, price tightening up. Doesn't need to be any harder than that. So just simplify it down and go from there.
Well, there's some great insights for the weekend. Taking into say thank you, Gary. For those who want to know more about his Magnificent 7 that he's talked about, there's a link over there on the right-hand side where these type of charts, what Gary's talking about right now, the ones that really excel and power and go for weeks and weeks and months, he's breaking down the best 7 of the last 12 months on the ASX and looked at all the opportunities, where the entry signals were, where the cues were. And that's the same blueprint that keeps repeating. So that's in full detail over there on the right.
I might try and put out a little dirty dozen today, Chris, as well. So the just what I consider maybe to be the 12 better, or probably the stocks that have sold off the most aggressive that I think's got probably got a chance of actually bouncing. I'm not recommending buying them. I'm just saying that if I had to pick 12 out of the uglier names of the year that I thought would probably bounce the most, that'll be my list. I might even just tweet that out around about 3 o'clock.
Nice. Well, we know that has shown great results before. I think it was 2018, 2019, and you've done it a few years since then. So we'll look for that tweet later this afternoon. Thank you, Gareth.
Thanks, Chris.